So if you go to corporate, if you go to SHBC corporate, you know the credentials for your email.
Yeah, it just seems to come on. It seems to connect on there.
Or it's there. That's probably from the last.
I can't see that.
Yeah.
So
That's it.
Councillors, aldermen, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the Mayor of Surrey Hills.
There we are.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to ask the Reverend Canon Stuart Thomas from St. Peter's and St. Francis Church, Frimley, to guide the council in prayers.
As this is the first meeting of the full council in this chamber for rather a long time, take a moment to reflect, to give thanks for our calling and tasks ahead, to give thanks for each other as we work for the good of this borough, and to remember those here, present, or around our borough who may not be rejoicing in new freedoms, but feeling rather threatened and uncomfortable. In reflecting on this evening's business, in praying for all that will be discussed and decided, we give thanks for God's love, which surrounds all, regardless of their circumstances, their ethnic origins, or faith adherence. We pray for our borough, now starting to recover from the COVID pandemic. May we remember those who have suffered grievously, whether through bereavement or severe illness, through loss of livelihood or income, through disruption in family or relationships. May we remember those in our borough who struggle, who need our help and support, who rely heavily on the decisions we make. Lord God, we come before you this evening with our many thoughts, our many priorities, our many uncertainties. We ask you to bless this meeting, to help us tackle the agenda and the issues of this borough with wisdom, compassion and sensitivity. We pray for those who need healing and grace. We pray for those who need strength in their weakness. We pray for those who depend on the decisions of this council made in this room as they journey through life on their own path. We ask you to bless us, to give us wisdom in our words, in our decisions and our actions. And whatever our differences, to draw us together in what you call us to do for the good of all people in this borough. And we ask this through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Welcome members, aldermen, officers and any members of the public viewing at home to this evening's council meeting. Please be seated. Members, given the arrangements in the chamber this evening, I move that Council Procedure Rule 21.2, requiring to stand, be suspended for this meeting. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second that proposal. Is that agreed, members? Agreed. Ms Willis, may I please have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've received apologies from Councillor Peace Barnett, Councillor Richard Brooks, Councillor Vivian Chapman, Councillor Ben Leach and Councillor Charlotte Morley. Some of these councillors are joining the meeting virtually, but I do want to be aware they won't be able to go to the meeting.
Moving on to agenda item 2, I propose that the minutes of the annual meeting of the council held on 19th of May 2021 be approved as a correct record. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to second that motion.
Is that agreed, members?
Agreed.
Item 3, Mayor's announcements. Firstly, members, I am saddened to inform you of the death of a former councillor, Mr. Ken Pedder. Ken was a councillor at Surrey Heath Borough Council, serving his community between 1991 and 2015, representing Town Ward. He also served as Surrey Heath's Mayor in 1999 to 2000. Having been the Deputy Mayor in 98 and 99. He was Chairman of the Development Control Committee in 97 and 98. He was Chairman of the Planning Applications Committee between 2004 and 2009. He was also Chairman, Vice Chairman of the Joint Staff Consultative Group for several years. Ken moved to Camberley in 1962, and he played an active role for many years as a trustee of Frimley and Camberley Aged Concern, as a school governor and a supporter of Frimley Park Hospital. I am sure you will all join me in sending our kind thoughts and condolences to his family. Councillors, honorary aldermen and members of the public, I now move on to announce the retirement of Mr. Tim Passion. At the end of next month, we are saying farewell to Tim Passion, our Executive Head of Community, who's retiring from the council where he has worked for the past 25 years. This will be his very last full year. Tim joined Surrey Heath Borough Council in April 1996 as a Principal Environmental Health Officer after a few years at both Townsbridge and Mole Valley councils. 8 years later, he was promoted to the role of Head of Environmental Services. He then went on in 2012 to become the council's Executive Head of Community and had spells as both Deputy and Chief Executive and Acting Chief Executive, where he provided great stewardship of the organisation through the long months of the pandemic, where he also coordinated the council's emergency response. But despite Tim's long career in Surrey Heath and almost 30 years in local government as a whole, he had time to squeeze in another long and distinguished career. Tim's first career started when he left his Dorset home at the age of 15 to join the British Army at the School of Hygiene, which barracks down the road in Ash Vale. With a focus in preventative medicine, Tim's job was to protect the health of our troops, serving in our countries across the world from deadly diseases and infections. I think a much more extreme version of the environmental health we now know and we are familiar with in local government. In the Royal Army Medical Corps, Tim's talents were clearly recognised as he rose to the formal rank of captain, then major, and then finally officer commanding the Environmental Health Wing, the most senior environmental health role in the British Army. He served overseas in Hong Kong, Falkland Islands, Germany, Nepal, Brunei, South Korea, and back at home at Horse Guards in London. Tim was awarded the United Nations Peacekeeping Medal in 1974 and the Long Service and Good Conduct Medal in 1984. Since joining the Army, Tim has lived in the local area for some 55 years. When not working, Tim and his wife Sue's great passion is their horses, which they still ride. And Tim is also very active in the local community, including his role as group scout leader. Tim has been an exemplary public servant with a career spanning an incredible 55 years. On behalf of everyone in this chamber, I'd like to say a big thank you to Tim for all that he has done and achieved for this council and for our country. And also to wish Tim a long, happy and very well deserved retirement. Please will you join me in an applause for Tim Passion. So moving on, mayor's announcements. So we have something a little different to show you. Please watch while I talk and you will see what I've been up to. So from the word go, I was out. 26th of May, I attended Woodlarks Bag Shop and planted the last tree in their orchard. 28th of May, the Great British Spring Clean. I was part of the litter pick for Surrey Heath. 2nd of June, visiting a local business, Sonari, in Frimley, to learn more about what they do. 4th of June, I had the pleasure of meeting Gav and the team at Oysters Fish and Chip Shop, Lightwater,
to celebrate National Fish and Chip Day. 4th of June, I attended via Zoom Surrey Mayors Association welcome meeting. We saw there the official opening of Prickly Pear, our first zero waste shop in Camberley and the Borough. The official opening of Ream Vintage Clothes Shop, second independent store to open in Camberley. 21st of June, fly the flag for Armed Forces Day. 21st of June, attended Camberley Alzheimer's CAF monthly meeting, yes again, via Zoom. 24th of June, a networking business event at Ascot Brewery, and that was meeting local businesses. 25th of June, official opening of another new store, Anita's Barber Shop in Camberley. 1st of July, this was the ribbon cutting for the opening of the new Places and Leisure Centre in Camberley, and I'd like to thank my Deputy Mayor, Councillor Whitcroft, for doing that for me. Thank you. My second thank you again for attending Raystar Care Home, which was a Spanish sail-off party. Thank you. 7th of July, Surrey Heath Scout District AGM by Zoom. And that was to thank their continued work through COVID and keeping the children of our borough engaged. Thank you, Tim. 8th of July, the official opening of another independent store in Camberley, Willow and Nutmeg, a ladies' boutique right up my street. 8th of July, the official opening, I just read that, so I do apologise. 16th of July, High Cross Church Youth Club Barbecue. 17th of July, I had the pleasure of Lakeside Primary School, where they did a rainbow colour run for the year 6 leavers, and I have to say it was an absolute pleasure to hear the children just be children and be happy and running about. And I'm sure we all agree after the 18 months we've had, that was just wonderful. 21st of July, I met the amazing ladies at lunch on the green, and this again is another amazing thing to our community. So these ladies, most were widowed. They started at the beginning of lockdown, Wednesday morning at 11, Sunday mornings at 11, just to keep each other going, to help that isolation, to feel that they were part of something. Again, a pleasure to meet these ladies. 17th of July, meeting up with the team from Pride on the Road. Another fantastic event. Thank you, Councillor Rice. 24th of July, Celebrate Camberley Town Centre event. Another fantastic experience where all I can say is I've definitely felt the love. It was just an incredible, heartwarming experience that people felt safe and they were together and we were all part of something. And then the 27th of July, today, ribbon cutting, the official launch of Surrey Heath Borough Council's The Workshop. Another great initiative from our council, so thank you. So I hope you all enjoyed the little bit of background so you can see what was going on. Okay, moving on to item 4. I would like to invite the leader to make his announcements.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm afraid I don't have a presentation or anything to go with it. The bar has been raised quite high. Following the official end of the national lockdown on the 19th of July, I think it's great to be able to meet again in the council chamber, albeit it seems a lot more cramped than the last time we were in here. but needs must. And I'm looking forward to when we'll be able to do away with the screens and get back to normal. It's also refreshing to once again be actively planning for future events and activities in the borough as part of supporting the recovery of our communities and our economy. At 4 p.m. on Monday, the 2nd of August, we shall be raising the Progress Pride flag in support of and in recognition of the contribution the LGBTQ+ community makes to this borough's life, and all members are welcome to attend. At the May Council, we unanimously approved the motion to confer the freedom of the borough on all ranks of the Joint Hospital Group South East in recognition of the extraordinary service they provided during the pandemic and in recognition of the Council's long-standing links with the Ministry of Defence and Frimley Park Hospital. I'm pleased to confirm that the date of this event is now set for Sunday, the 12th of September, and members should have received their invitations this week. On the 25th of June, I was delighted to attend with the Mayor an event to hear the outcome of the formal ballot into whether our Business Improvement District would continue for another 5-year term. It was a tough time for the bid to ask businesses to support continued precept on their business rates, so it was fantastic to hear that the answer was a resounding yes. The value of Collectively Camberley is apparent, as this is their 3rd 5-year term, and at 93%, one of the highest yes votes in the country. With the bid's future secure, for another 5 years, we can look forward to seeing them deliver an exciting programme of events to help bring people back to our town, which included on Saturday the Camberley Festival, and then on the 14th of August, the Camberley Car Show. On the 1st of July, we saw the opening of our brand new leisure centre, a £22 million investment in the borough's future and in the future health and well-being of our residents. It's also a demonstration of what can be achieved through partnership working, in this case, us with Places Leisure as the operator and Pelican, the specialist build contractor. No matter how good a building contractor is, they often find it hard to win friends among those living next door to the construction site. Last Wednesday, I had the pleasure of showing those residents living within earshot of the leisure centre around the new facility. As well as being very impressed with the centre, I was pleasantly surprised that they were full of praise for how considerate Pelican had been in keeping noise and disruption to an absolute minimum throughout the construction phase. The facilities at the leisure centre are absolutely fantastic, and if you haven't had an opportunity to visit yet, I strongly encourage you to do so. One announcement that some of you are already aware of is that we have successfully transferred back on shore the assets that were previously sitting in the Jersey Property Unit Trust, or JPUT. This is a positive step, giving the Council more control and visibility over these important assets being managed. This was a priority for the Property Investment Working Group, and I'm pleased it's been delivered. As members will be aware, we're in the process of developing a new 5-year strategy for the Council. I'm pleased to say we've reached the public and stakeholder engagement phase of the work. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our cross-party task and finish group for shaping and guiding this work, and in particular, helping explore a range of different ways to actively engage with our communities about their aspirations for the future of the borough and the priorities of this Council. This could not have come at a better time, as we prioritise the health and quality of life of our residents, regrowing our economy and reducing our negative impact on the environment. At a council meeting recently, we agreed to maintain and expand our graduate and intern programmes. I'm very pleased to confirm that we've been successful in securing 7 summer interns who joined the organisation this month to undertake short-term assignments across the council from HR to planning policy. And hopefully this will give them a foothold in their career when suitable jobs come up, and hopefully at this council. I'm also pleased to confirm the council has been successful in securing 2 new graduate trainees from the highly competitive National Graduate Development Programme run by the Local Government Association. The quality of the graduates was extremely high, so we're fortunate to be welcoming Rachel Bradbury and Rosie Cox, who are due to join us in the autumn. I can also confirm that our new permanent head of planning, Gavin Chinya, is due to start with us next month. He was appointed through a rigorous recruitment process following the retirement of Jenny Rickard in May of this year. This appointment will further support our plans to increase customer service. And finally, I would just like to say a few words about Tim Passion. Knowing Tim as I do, he's probably just winced because what the mayor said was probably excruciating to him, because like many, he does not take praise well, yet he deserves a lot of praise. I'd just like to say a bit about it. I was elected leader on the 29th of January 2020, and 53 days later, the Prime Minister announced the first lockdown. Fortunately for this council and the residents of Surrey Heath, Tim Passion was acting chief exec. As we heard from the mayor, Tim's background in environmental health and protecting our troops from deadly diseases meant that Tim was remarkably well equipped to organise our response, marshal our resources, and take us into battle. And trust me, back then it felt like a battle. In the early stages, there was a lot of confusing data, conflicting opinions, and almost hourly changes of instructions. But Tim was able to take this all in and develop a masterful plan of action, which I and many other people believe was one of, if not the best response to the crisis in the country. Tim immediately saw the huge potential of Surrey Heath Prepared to be the foundation stone of our response, and coordinated this council, Surrey County Councils, and the government's activities with them. I was on several calls with Tim and members of Surrey Heath Prepared, where he said simply, "What do you need?" Once asked, there was no delay. Action was taken that day, and in most cases delivered shortly after. I doubt many other councils had that kind of leadership from their chief execs. As the months passed, I found Tim to be extremely supportive of my agenda for change, but consistently able to prioritise the health and well-being of our residents and staff above all else. Tim saw me and us through the crisis, and I shall always be grateful for his advice, calm influence, and his outstanding leadership. We were fortunate to have the right man in the right place at the right time, and thank you, Tim. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Moving on to item 5, declaration of interest. Agenda item 5. Do any members have any disclosable pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests to declare in relation to the matters which are to be considered?
Right.
Item 6. Questions from members of the public. I am advised that a question has been received from a member of the public under Council Procedure Rule 10. I would like to invite Richard Payne to read out the question from Mr. Jacques Colmore.
Council elections campaign started.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can the executive member provide an update on any proposed work for the Frimley Green recreation grounds, including but not limited to extra picnic tables and seating around the children's playgrounds? I appreciate that 2 tables are to be installed shortly, but they simply replace those removed earlier in the year. Given the number of residents who use this park, this cannot be considered sufficient. Please could you also advise when improvements to the public lavatories will be taking place, as they are in serious need of renovation?
I'm advised that the Places and Strategy portfolio holder will respond to this question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Over the past 18 months, Frimley Green Recreation Ground, like a number of our parks, has suffered from significantly increased levels of vandalism compared to previous years. Picnic tables and benches have been a particular target, and it reached a point where they were being damaged beyond repair within days or weeks of being replaced. However, we appreciate that with the recent run of very good weather, not that you know it tonight, these facilities are now in demand by regular park users, so we have reinstated the existing benches. To support the reduction in vandalism and antisocial behaviour, we will soon be installing CCTV as well as implementing additional security controls overnight. Once these new measures are in place and we hopefully see a reduction in vandalism, then we can consider installing additional benches. We will also continue to work closely with the local community police team, who will continue to make regular visits to the park, which should act as an additional deterrent. The toilets in Frimley Green Recreation Ground are just one of 11 public conveniences that are managed by the council, and although regularly serviced, are also subject to vandalism, which we hope will be reduced by the increased security measures already mentioned. From now on, the toilets will be opened and locked in line with park opening hours, and we are also looking to install stronger doors and windows to further deter out-of-hours antisocial behaviour. If these measures work, then, as with the request for additional benches, we could consider seeking funding for improvements or renovations to these and our other public toilets across the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones Evans. As Mr. Onwell was unable to attend this meeting, he was given the opportunity to submit a supplementary question in advance. Mr. Payne, can you advise if a supplementary question has been asked?
Madam Mayor, no supplementary question has been received from Mr. Onwell.
Thank you. Item 7, questions from councillors. A question from Councillor Morgan Rice for the leader has been submitted and has been circulated. Councillor Rice, would you like to read out your question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With the recent letter from the Secretary of State responsible for local government that signalled the government's intention to pursue full devolution for England, which seems to be unitary authorities and metro mayors, can the leader of the council provide an update on the discussions he has had with officers and with his counterparts in the other 10 boroughs and borough and district councils and at Surrey County Council on proposals for local government reform in Surrey?
Councillor Rice. I invite the leader to respond to this question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Rice, for your question. The Secretary of State's letter informed but did not direct any specific action. The thrust being the desire from the government to see improved services and reduce costs in local authority through collaborative working, which can range from shared services up to unitary authorities. The Secretary of State has been clear that restructuring must be locally led and locally supported. Surrey leaders are determined to see these kind of improvements across the whole of Surrey and are keen to work collaboratively with neighbouring boroughs and districts and Surrey County Council. Discussions are taking place as to what best suits each borough and district, whether through shared services or moving to a unitary authority, and if so, with whom. Boroughs and districts commissioned a report last year outlining the best options for unitaries within Surrey, and this will inform those discussions. It is interesting that of the 3 recent changes to unitary authorities, Cumbria, North Yorkshire and Somerset, 2 have gone for a single unitary, albeit with significantly lower populations than Surrey. And Mr. Roberts and I have discussed how we expand shared services with our neighbours that can replicate the success of the shared services we currently have. We've also discussed what the roadmap may look like if Surrey Heath Borough Council were to go down the unitary authority route.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Rice, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks to you, Leader, for your answer. In the letter from the Secretary of State, it made clear that the intention was for local authorities to pursue consultation on any future changes. Can the leader commit to carrying out consultation with our local residents on any proposed change to local government in Surrey Heath?
Thank you. Yeah, I can absolutely commit to carrying out consultation. It's not only the right thing to do, but it's also written into our constitution. That's how we would do it. Thank you.
Moving on to item 8, executive committees and other bodies. Can I have a proposer for the executive open minutes and the recommendations at minute 12/B and the recommendation from last week's executive meeting as set out on the agenda paper?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to move that the open minutes of the executive 20th of April, 26th of May and 15th of June 2021 be received and the recommendations approved.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to second those minutes.
Are you happy to receive these minutes and to agree the recommendation? Oh, I beg your pardon. Councillor Bates.
Thank you, I didn't advise you in advance, I should have done. I wish to make a comment about number 12B, the public realm recommendation. I have no objections to the rest of the minutes or the recommendation to it. But in my view, the first bullet point there should be deferred tonight. And I don't think we should actually be voting for it. What happened at that executive was it was discussed the fact that £754,000, £754,600 was spent in excess of what had previously been apparently agreed. I say apparently because it was also decided there should be an investigation, which has not yet concluded. My view is that that should be concluded by the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee, who need to understand, as I think all of us do really, how that situation may have happened, what we discussed, what learning points there may be. But I'm personally uncomfortable as a councillor to agree that tonight to go into our capital programme when that investigation has not yet concluded. Now, it is true that that money has been spent and has been spent by this council, but we don't yet know at this moment, pending the investigation, whether that should have been done or should not have been done. My view is that if councillors agree this tonight, then to be perfectly honest, that does neuter the investigation, because at this stage, what you're saying is that you in effect agree with that spending. Now, you may agree with it, you may not agree with it, but my view is that that investigation should run its course. We should get to the bottom of understanding what has happened there, and we should then bring that matter back to this council once we have learned whatever that may be. And I say I don't know at the moment, and therefore I don't think I want to comment further about that. But I do think we do need to understand that, because that is a very large amount of public money, and we as councils have a responsibility around that. So my own proposal is that little I is deferred at this stage until the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee have completed their investigation, which I do not expect to take too long. So hopefully the next full council, or possibly the one after, depending on the diligence of the chair, who I suspect will be willing to do this very quickly. I hope I have seconded that.
Do we have a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I would like to second that. Thank you.
Do you wish to reserve your right to speak? Do you wish to invite any other members to speak? Councillor McCafferty.
I share a lot of the concern that Councillor Bates has for this. I think you were at the executive where this was discussed, Councillor Bates. And it is absolutely unfortunate that the public realm, the high street, overran by actually significantly more than the 754,000, but as you know, an amount of that was redeemable through the government because it was due to COVID. The executive determined that we would send this to the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee to look at, but the basis of that was to find out what lessons were to be learned so that we could better control and hopefully avoid this kind of thing happening going forward. Unfortunately, as you quite rightly say, the money has either been spent or has been fully committed, and therefore the executive put in the paper that we recommend that the £754,600 do be added to the capital programme, and I think that's correct that it is done so this evening. I don't think that it actually in any way impairs the chair. I don't feel the chair is going to be in any way impaired from investigating for lessons learned. I also think part of what you raised at the executive was that you wanted the monitoring officer just to confirm that everything had happened completely in accordance as it should have done, and that will also be looked at. But none of those two things actually change the fact that the funds have been spent or committed, and therefore it's right that we put them into the capital programme, and I believe this evening is the right time to do it.
Do we have any other speakers?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. Much as I appreciate, it's a little bit like saying what's done can be undone. Therein, I think, from the same play, madness lies. So I'm sure it's one you're very familiar with, Peter. So I think that I don't understand the harm of the deferment. I don't understand the risk in deferring it. And actually, given that the money has been spent, to be making a judgment on the expenditure with full information and pending the outcome of performance and finance scrutiny, I think the committee would, make us, I hope all of us feel more comfortable with ratifying or at least agreeing to that expenditure being added. It's obviously an individual decision, and I am not sure how widely this has been discussed in other groups. But my personal view is that there is a risk associated with us all ratifying the expenditure without being cognizant of all facts. Which I know historically we've been quite good at expenditure without knowing the full facts. But hopefully this is a new area and one where it should stop.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to declare an interest here regarding the chairman's performance of finance scrutiny. So I don't want to make any judgment. And Councillor Gates and Councillor Wheeler have made some points which is kind of valid, not entirely. And Peter has said the money has been spent. So I think once money is spent, if it's need to be taken into account, it has to be taken into account. Yeah. But if there's some untoward thing happens or had happened, then we can bring it back to the council and then concentrate on what to do. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I could just raise a technical matter. My understanding is in relation to this piece of work that the council has a contractual commitment to meet the costs that are being incurred. And therefore, if you delay this decision, that may place the council at risk. I don't know the full details of that, but I can imagine that the people that the council are contracted to may exercise their rights within that contract to increase the amount of payment due to a delay in making their final sum payment. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Deach.
Thank you, and thank you for that intervention there, because I was wondering myself, to be honest with you, what the harm is in deferring. The fact of the matter is, this has been an overspend, and based on what we've just heard there from the Chief Executive Officer, there's a very good chance that a bad situation is going to be made worse by even more expenditure. Now, I've heard what the leaders have to say, and as a result of that, the inspection by the Chief Executive Officer, I'm happy to go ahead with this.
Councillor Rise.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just on a point of clarity from the Chief Executive's recent intervention, if this money has already been spent, what contractual obligation would then require that money to then be increased? Because this, as my understanding, is us acknowledging and adding to the capital programme that the overspend has happened. If that overspend has happened, whoever we paid that to can't then come back and say, you haven't declared it fast enough, we want more. That's not how it works. So if you could provide clarity on that statement, please. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors, and if it's okay, councillor Rise, I'll take that question. I think at this point in time, we're not 100% sure exactly what invoices are still outstanding. My understanding is there are some, but I don't know the exact value of the outstanding invoices. I need to check with the team exactly of what invoices remain to be paid and whether there's any risk of any further reports. I don't have that information at this stage, but I do think there are some invoices that still need to be paid.
What is
Councillor Wren.
Thank you. I wasn't actually very much in the opinion of deferring until that last statement, which you've not filled me up with much confidence, because it seems like it's a lot of we don't know, and that has changed my mind considerably to maybe we should defer and find out what actually we're signing off here. It's a lot of money to be signing off without knowing what we're doing. So I think we need to just take a seat back and really think about what it is we're signing off here, because that's a lot of money. So I just want to say that on publicly. Oh dear.
Councillor Besson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to ease my confusion, am I correct in my assumption that the work has been done, it has been invoiced, but the invoices have not been paid?
Could I bring in Daniel Harrison, please? That's the head of services there.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just for clarity, there are a number of invoices that have been submitted for the work that do need to be paid. And as pointed out by the Chief Executive, to delay those further would put the council at risk of legal action by some of these organisations that have carried out the work and are waiting to be paid. Thank you.
Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if I was going to be allowed to speak again, actually. Sorry. No, I'm
My
not.
mistake, I do apologise.
That's absolutely fine. I'll ask somebody else to.
Councillor Galliford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm wondering, as we have the 151 officer on the screen, whether he is able to enlighten us any further.
Mr. Home, would you like to come in, please?
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, but only really to confirm what Mr. Harrison has said, that the invoices have been submitted, and as has been pointed out before, that it's a risk of having legal action started against us if we don't pay the invoices within the specified time. As has been said elsewhere tonight, obviously this matter is going before the scrutiny committee for further investigation, but notwithstanding that, at the moment, as I say, the invoices have been submitted in as much as they are properly submitted. That's correct, and obviously before we make any payment, they are signed off by relevant officers within the department that Mr. Harrison manages. So provided that's done satisfactorily, then we have no good reason to withhold payment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Oh, sure, that's right. Sure, that's why I said.
Councillor Skipper, I do apologise, I can't actually see name badges, so I'm struggling to remember everybody. So I do apologise. Councillor Skipper.
Yeah, can I ask if are the contracts fixed?
Could you repeat that, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to know if the contracts are fixed. Are we tied into a contract?
Madam Mayor, just again on that technical point, I think the question was, are they fixed?
Yes.
Okay, and so if that is what you mean by fixed, is does the council have a contract that requires a payment by a set time? And if it's paid, could result in legal action against the council, or result in that payment being escalated, i.e. increased by a certain percentage, according to the amount of delay. While I don't have those contracts in front of me, my experience would suggest that it's very likely. You've heard from the Executive Head of Service, you've heard from the Council's Section 151 officer, you've heard from the Council's Chief Legal Officer, and I think you've heard from me as the Chief Executive. That if you defer, if you decide to defer this item, members, then you are likely to place the Council at risk. I think that advice has been reinforced through every officer that's spoken on that this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Hawkins, I saw your hand.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My understanding of the contract was that it wasn't a fixed price contract per se, and there were additional works once the main excavation was underway. And there were additional costs incurred to COVID, some of which has been covered by the government, some of which couldn't be covered. And the nature of the contract was such it could not be a fixed price contract. However, having said that, you know, I would like to have seen the words here provisional sum, because from what we've heard, we don't know for certain that this is the correct figure. Notwithstanding that, I do think we should pass this, we should agree to carry through the payments, but I would really urge, and I'm sure Councillor Malpanican and others will pick this up, to have a root and branch review of not just this contract, but all the way the contracts are carried out through this council, so that we may be slightly on top of things than we possibly sound as if we are. And I would support the recommendation. I say I would prefer the word provision in here, but I'm very much in favour of this coming back to the PNF for a detailed review of the cost and process as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Bates, your right to reply.
Yes, thank you. I'm not going to withdraw this because we haven't answered how this managed to get done in the first place. I'm afraid, at least not to my satisfaction, and therefore I cannot agree to withdrawing the motion where there is considerable questions about the amount of money spent in the first place, considerable questions about how much money we still have to pay. It's quite obvious to me we need to defer this. I've listened very carefully, as I always do, respectfully to our officers, and rarely on this occasion I'm going to disagree with them, having taken into account very carefully their advice. I've listened to it, but I'm not going to agree on this occasion because I think there are too many questions left about how this was done, and we haven't answered them yet. And because we haven't answered them, I cannot, in good faith to my constituents, agree it at this stage, which is why I'm asking for it to be deferred and not refused. And I think that is a perfectly reasonable place to be, and that's where I am. Now, maybe that is not the majority, and I respect that, but that's where I am. For that reason, I'm going to propose this tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Bates. So we are now going to put to vote to defer. It's recommendation little I. All those in favour to defer? Are we okay to do a roll call, please, for this? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Evening, councillors. I will proceed to call out your names in turn and when your name is heard. Apologies, then. When your name is heard, if you could just simply call out for or against, I'd be grateful. Thank you. So, Councillor Dan Adams. Against. Councillor Graham Holloway. For. Councillor Rodney Bates. For. Councillor Cliff Benton.
Against.
Councillor Sarah Jane Croke.
Against.
Councillor Paul Deach.
Against.
Councillor Colin Dugan.
Against.
Councillor Tim Fitzgerald.
For.
Councillor Sharon Gallagher.
For.
Councillor Sean Garrett.
Against.
Councillor Mark Walden.
Against.
Councillor Edward Hawkins.
Against.
Councillor Josephine Hawkins.
Against.
Councillor Rebecca Jennings Evans.
Against.
Councillor David Lewis.
Against.
Councillor David Mansfield.
Against.
Councillor Alan Clafferty.
Against.
Councillor Emma McGrath.
For.
Councillor Sashi Malbaka.
Against, sorry, for.
Councillor Adrian Page.
Against.
Councillor Robin Perry.
Against.
Councillor Darren Latimer.
Against.
Councillor Morgan Rice.
For.
Councillor John Skipper.
For.
Councillor Graham Tapper.
For.
Councillor Pat Tedder.
For.
Councillor Victoria Wheeler.
For.
Councillor Helen Whitcroft.
For.
Councillor Valerie White.
Against.
Councillor Christian Red.
For.
We have 13 for and 17 against. So the motion is not carried. Are you happy to receive these minutes and to agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Moving on to planning applications committee. Proposer for the planning application committee minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish to propose the minutes of the Planning Application Committee on 15th of April, 20th of May, 17th of June, and 15th of July. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to second the acceptance minutes.
Members, are you happy to receive these minutes?
Agreed.
Thank you. Audit and Standards Committee. Can I have a proposer for the audit and standards minutes?
So, yes, I'd like to propose the minutes for the Audits and Standards Committee meeting of the 26th of April
Do you have a seconder?
Madam Mayor, please still second those minutes.
Members, are you happy to receive these minutes?
Agreed.
Thank you. External Partnerships Select Committee. Can I have a proposer for the External Partnerships Select Committee minutes?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to propose the minutes of the External Partnership Select Committee of the 1st. Thank you.
And do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to second those minutes.
Members, are you happy to receive these minutes?
Agreed.
Thank you. Employment Committee. Can I have a proposer for the Employment Committee minutes from the 10th of June 2021 and the open recommendation from yesterday's committee meeting is set out on the agenda paper?
Proposed minutes of the Employment Committee from the 10th of June and the recommendation from the non-exempt part of the meeting on the 27th of June as laid out in the paper. Sorry, July. Yes.
Do I have a seconder?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to second it.
Are you happy to receive these minutes and to agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Joint Staff Consultative Group. Can I have a proposer for the notes of the Joint Staff Consultative Group, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to propose the minutes of the Joint Staff Consultation Group, 24th of June 2021 be accepted. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to second those minutes of Joint Staff Consultative Group on 24th of June.
Members, are you happy to receive these notes?
Agreed.
Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee. Can I have a proposer for this Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee minutes, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to propose the minutes of Performance of Finance Scrutiny Committee meeting held on the 7th of July 2021.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to second those minutes.
Members, are you happy to receive these minutes?
Agreed.
I would like to ask Councillor Paul Deach to move his motion and indicate if he wishes to reserve his right to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Do I read this out? I assume everybody's read it. Don't need to read it out again, do I? What's the process for this, please?
Yes, if you could read it, please, Councillor Deach.
Right, okay, I can do that. And I do reserve my right to speak. Thank you. So this council resolves that in order for residents of all abilities, disabilities to be able to access the borough's services, facilities and infrastructure, 1, the council will consider accessibility where applicable in all aspects of its decisions relating to resident-facing public services and facilities, so that all residents can benefit from such services regardless of ability or disability. And 2, that the council will aspire to make the borough an accessibility exemplar. And 3, any development approved by this council should consider accessibility where applicable and in accordance with council policy as a component part in respect of any community gains.
Thank you, Councillor Deach. Do we have a seconder?
I'm happy to second that, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
I'd like to invite members to discuss the motion and make any comments.
Do I not speak to the proposal now, Madam Mayor? Yeah.
Wish.
Great, thank you. Okay, so members, the motion I bring to you this evening has come about as a result of the wheelchair accessible swing that has now been installed at Frimley Lodge Park. Most of you will be aware that I have campaigned for that swing for a number of years following an approach by a young disabled woman who lives in the ward that I represent. Since posting about the newly installed swing on my Facebook page, I was surprised at the number of residents that have contacted me to say that while they are delighted at the installation of the new facility, they feel that accessibility in the borough falls short of what they would consider acceptable. When we think of accessibility, we sometimes default to wheelchair users, but there are many other examples where accessibility is vital to segments of our community. This includes, but by no means limited to, partially sighted residents, those with hearing impairments, dementia, and residents with spectrum disorders. These are just a few examples, and I know members here will be able to give many more examples of other disabilities or conditions that impact some of the residents that we represent. We are all in the fortunate position that the facilities this borough offers is accessible to us, but many residents do not enjoy that same good fortune. For example, some residents and their carers cannot visit recreation areas and green spaces because there are no adequate toilet facilities to cater for their needs, or walking routes and paths that able-bodied residents enjoy are not suitable for their mobility equipment. We have to also be mindful that it's not possible to provide suitable infrastructure at every facility for a whole host of viability reasons, which could be financial, topographical, or there may not be suitable utility to support. I'm not saying every facility we provide should include an accessibility element. However, I am saying the viability of accessibility should be carefully considered with all decisions this council makes when it comes to resident-facing facilities that we deliver. I know that every member in this chamber, regardless of political affiliation, got involved in local politics because they want to make a difference. This is an opportunity to do just that by ensuring that it becomes a policy of this council that accessibility is always in our minds in everything this council does. By supporting this motion, we can all make a huge difference in many of our residents' lives in so many ways that it would be impossible to list them all. I do not believe this is a partisan matter, which is why I was delighted that my friend and independent Cholcombe councillor, Pat Tedder, enthusiastically agreed to second the motion. We have a real opportunity to make a difference in residents' lives this evening, members, so I hope you will support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May I ask, Cradle, yours and the council's indulgence for just a moment. As Mayor of the worst of the pandemic, I would like to give my thanks to Mr Passion for his lead and guidance to the council and all the support that he gave me through a very, very difficult year. Thank you, Tim. And to invite you, hopefully to see you on the 14th of November at St Lawrence with your wife at the Royal British Legion Armistice Service as usual. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was delighted to second Councillor Leach's motion and fully support all he has said, so I won't repeat it. I hope this is the start of an initiative with subtitles for all videos that were sent out by the Mayor, the Leader and this council. I also would like to say that Chom Ward has stepped up to the plate and has signed a contract, and they are installing a new disabled loo in our recreation ground so that everyone can enjoy that green space. I therefore ask all councillors to support Councillor Leach's motion and ask all councillors to give a thought of what they can achieve in their wards. Please support Councillor Leach's motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tedder. I'd like to invite members to discuss the motion and make any comments. Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd also like to extend my support to Councillor Deach and to Councillor Tedder for this motion. I remember it was soon after the election in May 2019 that Councillor Deach approached myself and Councillor Whitlock about the swing and the resident in question, and both of us wholeheartedly supported the effort in securing soil funding. The three of us, as a joined up cross-party endeavour, was able to secure that soil funding much faster than I believe would have been possible if Councillor Deach had had to pursue it on his own. So with this motion, I read it, and I think it's a very simple motion, and it's very simple in its intent. There was one part I would disagree with slightly on Councillor Deachin in his speech, where he said that he wouldn't expect everywhere to be accessible. I think we should be expecting everywhere to be accessible, and I know that's not his intention. I think as we strive, and I think it's clear in the motion in terms of the borough becoming an accessibility exemplar, I think in every place possible we should be pursuing accessibility where. So I'm going to keep it brief and to say that this motion has my support, and I'm glad to support it, and congratulations, Councillor Deachin.
Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did have the benefit, just before this meeting, of having a chat with Councillor Beach about his motion. So I just want to firstly say that the ethos behind this is excellent. I think we all share a compassion towards those who may be less fortunate than ourselves in terms of differing abilities, whether that's physical ability. But I'm really pleased with what he also had to say about those with people with dementia as well. Many of you know that my father was pushing around Camberley up until just a very short time before he passed away. And I can absolutely agree with a lot of what Councillor Beach and others have said about the practical barriers that exist around Camberley and those venues that are more accessible than others. And equally, I know that Councillor Tedder has for some time fought the needs of those with hearing impairments, and there are other champions in this chamber, all around the chamber, of people who have also raised equality issues, and we should be recognising that, doing something about it. All I'm going to say, I suppose, is 2 points. Under Little I think we should be doing it already, and if we're not doing it, we should be legally doing it. So I'm quite happy for that to stay, but I do think some of that is probably covered by the Equality Act. And if it isn't, if there are outstanding issues, then we should kind of pick it up, and I'm sure officers do anyway. And I was just trying to think of something to kind of strengthen this motion further. And I'm just going to float some wording to Councillor Beach. I don't know whether he would be supportive of this or not, but I'm just keen that we don't just take it as an ethos, but that we take practical steps as well. And so the practical step which I would suggest, tentatively, but if he's willing to support, is to add a little 4 or a little IV, something along the lines of a member workshop be arranged on supporting all abilities so that we can practically discuss as members ways of enacting this motion. And so basically what I suppose I have in mind is that some kind of workshop or meeting where councillors can raise in more detail the practical barriers that we all know in our own areas, and that we can then practically look at ways to help address that. I don't know if he's supportive of that, would wish to include that in this motion. If he, yeah, I see. Because it is his motion, I'm keen to support the ethos of it.
Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also am very supportive of this motion. I think it's an excellent motion. There are a couple of timely amendments which I think that Councillor Deach would consider to be acceptable. And that is in point I, where it says the council will consider accessibility where applicable. I think we take out where applicable, and we simply say the council will consider accessibility in all aspects of its decisions, because surely accessibility, considering that, is always applicable and something to do. And I can't think of an instance where we wouldn't be making that consideration. And then in addition to that, in point 3, where it says any development approved by this council should consider accessibility. I think we should say that any development approved by this council will have considered accessibility. So again, we're strengthening the motion and removing any margin for not doing so. So I hope, Councillor Deach, that those 2 minor tweaks are you agree with.
Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to support this motion. As a parent of a child with special educational needs, it's a hidden disability which I see all the time. I'm also a trustee of Chloe and Sophie's Special Care Fund, which supports deaf children, and I know for a fact the founder of that group believes that a lot of
the issues that are around could be identified when new buildings are being put up, or lots of facilities don't always consider things like that. So maybe what we should consider as a council is not making the decisions as officers. We actually bring in the relevant parties when we're looking at any new buildings, etc., to make sure that it's not what the officers feel, it's what the organisations that are involved within those disabilities. But I am fully behind this and fully supportive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Councillor Deach.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody for your kind words of support. Like I said in my speech, that we all got involved in local politics to make a difference, and I think that in the spirit of that, I think I'm hearing everybody wanting to make a difference tonight. So thank you for your support. I personally don't have a problem with any of the amendments this evening, or the little adjustments, let's say. I will say though, Councillor Bates, that on your suggestion, I don't actually think we need to add that. I think we can agree that tonight, that we put together a members' workshop. If you want to put it in there, I've got no objection to it whatsoever. I just don't think it's absolutely necessary, because I think that everybody here this evening has said that they want to see this happen. I'm more than happy to make sure and pester officers to make sure that a workshop happens. On the slight adjustments on wording, I can't see any reason why we can't include those bits. I'm sure we can take some advice from the Chief Executive Officer this evening. I just want to see this happen, and I just want to see that our residents are served in the best possible way, and I think that that's what we're doing tonight. So happy to hear from the Chief Executive Officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I'm happy if members wish to agree the motion on the basis Councillor Beach just set out. So you can put it to the vote.
I'm happy to withdraw my amendment because I think Councillor Deach has clarified it, so I'm happy for that part not to be added, if you like, to help you move this on.
Thank you. I'd like now to move to the vote on this proposal as amended. We agreed? Show of hands, please. I think that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Item 10, I'd like to invite the leader to introduce the report and move a motion in respect of this item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members, item 10, review of political proportionality report is set out before you. The change in council numbers of the Liberal Democrats and Conservatives following the by-election in May of this year meant a change to the political proportionality on committees. Democratic Services suggested one Liberal Democrat seat be changed to a Conservative seat on the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee, and this was voted through at the annual council meeting in May. However, both the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Councillor Mulvaginam, and I agreed the main purpose of the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee is to scrutinise the decisions of the administration, and it is clearly best practice for that committee to not only be chaired by a member of the opposition, but where possible, for the administration not to have a majority on that committee. With the change voted through annual council, the administration would have had a majority on that committee. This paper therefore proposes to reverse that change and instead makes the change of seats to the employment committee, thereby achieving the overall political proportionality we are required to maintain. I therefore move the recommendation set out in clause 11, Annex A. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Do you have a seconder?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to second it.
Do you have any comments, members? Members, are you happy to agree the proposal?
Agreed.
Well, it looks like I'm something out of the Mikado. I do apologise, it's obviously where it is. Okay, moving on to item 11. Governance Working Group. I'd like to invite the leader to introduce the report of the Governance Working Group and to move the recommendations therein.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. The Governance Working Group is making 3 recommendations to Council. Firstly, the review of the ICT Code of Practice be noted, along with a proposal to provide a secure storage area for councillors. We are only being asked to note this as the Governance Working Group has asked for further investigation regarding data storage. Secondly, the Parliamentary Boundary Commission has proposed changes to the boundary for parliamentary elections. This is a highly political issue and no doubt will elicit a number of responses from individuals and political groups, but has, in the opinion of the Governance Working Group, little to no effect on our council. The recommendation, therefore, is that no response to the consultation be sent on behalf of the council. Thirdly, the Constitution has been tweaked and amended many times over the years, and there naturally now exist some anomalies and minor contradictions. The Governance Working Group is recommending a full review to be completed by December 2021. I therefore propose the recommendations set out in 7.1, small 1, 2 and 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Do you have a seconder?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to second that.
Do you have any comments, members? Is that agreed, members?
Agreed.
Moving on to item 12. Section 151 Officer Monitoring Update. You will see the report contains recommendations in respect of the appointment of a new Section 151 officer and the ceasing of arrangements to share the monitoring officer role with Elmbridge Borough Council. I propose that the recommendations as set out on the agenda paper be adopted. Do I have a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to second that proposal.
Do any members wish to speak on this item? Is that agreed, members?
Agreed.
Thank you, members. Item 13. I would now like to invite members to ask questions of the leader, Councillor Alan McCafferty, on issues relating to executive functions. Can I now have the first question from members? Councillor Besson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've just passed a motion regarding disability access. Last weekend, a situation came to my attention in Frimley Green regarding a resident who was unable to access their garden via the front or the back door due to the lack of a ramp. This process started in April 2019 with a visit from the County Council Occupational Therapist who recommended action, and it still has not been completed. Now, I know the portfolio holder is aware of this. I know that you, Madam Mayor, are aware of it now. I also know that none of the Frimley Green councillors were aware of it until now. Something went wrong in the council's process. Could I ask the leader what actions we are able to take to ensure that the fact of Surrey Heath Borough Council becoming an exemplar with respect to disabled access can be taken? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, Councillor Benton, I haven't had a lot of time to put a lot of thought into exactly how the council will be an exemplar. You're right, I have had 5 minutes, so to be fair, I should have a better answer than the one I'm about to give. I think that there's always an issue when we have a resident a problem, and particularly one that has taken a long time. And I'll be honest, when it also involves county council, I know that the issue can be more complicated than if it was just straightforward. I don't know the exact details of the issue that your resident has flagged to you. I do know that something that a resident has been struggling with since April 2019, and not having access to the front or rear garden is unacceptable. I also know that you and I and Councillor Garrett, the portfolio holder for this, have been in conversations recently about this. And I think that my answer is going to be 2 parts. One is I'm very happy to take the discussion offline with Councillor Garrett and yourself and look at the details of this and see how we can break any kind of deadlock. And part 2 is I'm very happy to, first of all, talk to Mr. Roberts, the Chief Exec, on how we're going to action the motion that we have just set in place. And also, of course, I would imagine it will be an agenda item at Councillor Bates' proposed workshop that we'll be having. And I think I look forward to hearing the kind of issues that we're having and how we can actually tackle them as a council. I hope that suffices.
Thank you. Any more questions, Leader? Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Building on the, well, it is slightly along parallel to the previous discussions on exemplars. It's my understanding, and I'm happy to, well, I'm not happy, but I accept it if I'm wrong on this, that once we became councillors, we in essence became corporate parents. Now, can I ask the leader, and I don't expect him 1 minute to be able to answer this, but can I ask the leader to investigate whether or not within the Constitution, councillors are corporate parents, and if that is the case, to advise all councillors or reissue any guidance or anything relating to the roles that duty carries. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. I will confess to not having a full understanding of the term corporate parents, but I understand that that is a term used widely at county councils and less so at borough councils. But I can confirm I'm more than happy to have the constitution reviewed, and where it's appropriate, I will come back to this council with instructions or amendments and information on corporate parents.
Any more questions for the leader? Moving on to item 14, exclusion of price in public. I move that under section 100A for the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the consideration of the business set out in items 15, 16 and 17 on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 1 and 3 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act. Do I have a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to second that motion.
Is that agreed, members?
Agreed.